What's going on? Let's get into something. Let's get into the ugly first, and then we might get into the bad, but then we'll end with the good. That's what usually happens on here. First, the ugly. I'm gonna go ahead and speak on this comment that I just gave because I'm not sure if it shows up on here. But top-notch 1A auditor Sean Paul Reyes, he does things for you. He's kind and legal and all the things that he does here. This sheriff was saying that anyway, you have to look at the whole video.
Not going to have a civil conversation because one of your it is. I'm not being argumentative. You're saying that I'm here provoking people, but you're not taking accountability for your officers who tried to provoke me and intimidate me. Shameless behavior, Sheriff. And what I'm doing here is exactly this, exposing you to the world. Wow. Sheriff McLaughlin came down himself. I showed him the entire video. He watched the whole thing, then said I was trying to provoke a reaction. Sheriff, your officer got out of his car on the way to lunch specifically to intimidate me. I never moved toward him. It's all on camera. And there are no complaint forms at this department.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the video, it's clear. He's not making that up. It's as clear as can be. I mean, unlike some auditors who are kind of provoking stuff. I don't even. They need to wisen up, but none of that was done here. But by the guy recording, it was done by the officers there. So anyhow, legally, so I give this comment here. And so legally, and he said that a few seconds before what I just played there, the sheriff literally said this. And so legally, cordially, professionally, and politely, recording where you can record, and they even agreed that yes, they can record there. And he said, "No, as long as you're not doing anything wrong." They agreed. It's not like that's even a debate here. Recording there and talking, he was talking kindly with the law enforcement officers, according to that sheriff, is provoking them to intimidate you. He says, well, you're making them do that or something, even though they said everything you're doing there is right and you're not doing anything illegal. And he wasn't, and you see that he wasn't provoking them. According to that sheriff, is provoking them to intimidate you, according to that sheriff. So I'm going to end this here. But that is all you need to know right there. That is, next you find out who is writing their policy. Because when he went for the complaint form, they said there is no complaint form, and they gave him this weird runaround. But one of the things they said here, it'll be determined whether they were going against policy. Or you might ask yourself, shouldn't they be going for what they're doing with the law? But there's law, and then there's policy for the police department. So even if they, first see if they're breaking their policy, which usually they are, oftentimes they are. But sometimes even if they are going against the law and the policy, you'll have like the sheriff or the police chief say, I don't believe he did anything that breaks our policy. Okay. You say, so first it's that for the complaint forms. Oftentimes they'll just lie on that. But sometimes even if they are okay within the police department's policy, they're not okay when it comes to the law. That's the second level. And then you get into legislation when you start dealing with laws that are voided by the Constitution. But that's further. We're not going to get onto that here. We're at the police department level. Next, you'll find out who is writing their policy. And that's where you'll start to find the source of where and why the blue line tyranny was created. They have the blue line on the, if you don't know, that, like oftentimes, even on the police car, sometimes you see it. They have the American flag and they have a blue line horizontally in the middle of it. And what they're teaching them with that is a different class of citizen. It's not even going by their policy. It's not even, okay, you break the law, you're below the line. No, it's you go against anything that we say, whether it be lawful. Heck, according to their own, according to many people's own experiences with it, even if they break their own policy, not only the law, but also their own department policy. It doesn't matter if they break it or not. If they say you're below the blue line, you're below the blue line, and they're a different system. See, they're getting that from Freemason, I'll call it theology, Freemason philosophy there, to where they're telling them they're some type of elitist. It's a little king syndrome. It's something that Freemasonry has spread, not only into Freemasonry, but also into police departments. Okay, last comment. It's the same thing that they do politically. They try to divide the people of the United States by the two wings, left and right. Oh, you got left wing. Oh, you got right wing. Of their same dirty Freemason bird. They got both wings of that dirty bird, the left and the right wing, as we've seen in politics more clearly in recent years than ever. Although it's been happening for over 100 years. In law enforcement, they try the same thing by the anti-American top to bottom division of that blue line. Usually done in the spirit of lawlessness. That's the spirit that it's done in. It's like they don't care about law. They've been told it's like, well, it's as you say, which is against everything. It's the foundations of America, the law. But they don't care. That's why it's lawlessness. It's like, well, if I say something that's because I'm above the blue line and I have this job and they gave me this badge, then that makes it right. It doesn't even make it right legally. It doesn't make it right morally. It doesn't make it right in terms of the Constitution. But they still try to enforce that. That's the blue line. Usually done in the spirit of lawlessness, policies that are against the law, or even further, laws that are deemed void by the Constitution. Either way, however deep they go into that. But, yeah. But that's what was happening there, and that's how the... for one instance, the law enforcement departments have been trained, and that's why they've been trained that way. Well, like I say, New World Order. I mean, you could research Interpol, and you could research where they're really getting it from in the CFR. New World Order, Luciferians, is who's running that system, who are trying to divide the people of the USA. That's what it is. That's what they're trying to do. And they're using lawlessness to do it. I mean, so that's what it is. That's what's going on with those police departments, and that's why they don't care. You could recite law to them. You could recite whatever you want to recite. They've been told, well, that they're a part of this. They're part of this people, so they're always right and you're always wrong. But that's not how it works, and that's definitely, surely not how the United States of America system works or was founded on. You honor them for what they are. You don't say, some people say F the police and all that stuff. No, you give honor to whom honor is due. But let's take it to the highest level. Okay, let's end this out here. If you're in let's say you're in a military, here's something that people would do well to understand. If you're in a military, let's say you're a corporal, you have a sergeant, your immediate commanding officer is a sergeant, and you have captains, colonels, and so forth from there. If whether you're sergeant or you're a colonel of your brigade there, battalion, I say, well, whatever it is, tells you to do something that is against God. Here's the top level. Most people say, well, our commanding officer is saying it, so I don't want to be a rebel. I don't want to be all these, and they pump all types of stuff in you like that in the military to have you to believe in whatever they say, regardless of whether it's lawful or whether it's moral or anything. But this top level, they say like, well, it's your job to obey. Well, from the top level first, if they're telling you something to do something that is against God, do you know that it's actually your job to not obey? Yeah. If you do not obey, if they're pick the top one and the easy one here. If they tell you something to do against God, you know it's actually your duty to not obey them. And sure, in your platoon, your company, or whatever, it's probably going to create some chaos. You get some flack or whatever. They're going to make you feel bad, and or trying to make you feel small. And oh, what are you doing? You're going against all of us. You anti-American. They're going to do all that stuff, and it might create chaos. And you would have to face the repercussions of it, but you don't do it. You obey the highest. If they're telling you something to go against the highest authority, you do not obey them. That's how you obey authority. That's not being rebellious or disobedient. That's being obedient. And that's good not only for yourself, that's good for them. Even though, let's say, it creates chaos in the platoon or company and such, and they kick you out and stuff like that. You standing up for the highest authority actually helps everyone. They were saying it would be best if that happens, that you make it known to the people that you're around in platoon and say, hey, they told me to do something that's against God. My conscience before God doesn't allow me to do it. I'm going to obey the highest authority. Try to make it known. So the more people know that, they might get their little feelings hurt or something like that, but that's actually doing good for the whole system. That's not you wanting your own way or something like that. No, that's doing good for the officers above you. That's doing good for you. That's doing good for the ones below you. That's doing good for the whole system, even though they might try to give you trouble. But that's their responsibility, and that's something they'll have to face. Well, that's the easy one. But it also works from levels, let's say, from levels 2 to 3. It also works that way. And like, for instance, a police officer is telling you to do something that's actually unlawful. It's actually against the law. You're following the law, but they're saying, no, I'm the law here. See, you might hear them sometimes say, I'm the law here. Well, no, actually, you're not the law here. The only person in human government system that can whimsically just say laws, whatever comes out of their mouth as a law, is a king, and they're not kings. And we supposedly don't have a king. We don't even have kings. Let's just say supposedly we have a government. It doesn't even work that way for anyone here. If the president of the United States tell you to do that, they can't. They can't just say, well, whatever I tell you to do, you got to do. Not if it's against the law, or not if it's against the highest authority. A law enforcement officer very easily can't do that. You're not being rebellious. You're obeying authority. Not sticking up for what is right. First, the highest authority, and then the laws on the land. And if those laws on the land are against the highest authority, well, that's where you take the fight. Then you don't take that fight to the officers. They're just low level. Like if the colonel did something ungodly and making you do something ungodly, you don't go to the sergeant and say, you might let them know, but you're not going to expect them to do anything about it. I think it pretty much explains it all. Oh gosh, I'm doing another message on this. Okay, all right. Well, let's do another message on this then. I guess there's still some things to be said. I mean, it's 250th anniversary. Things are going to happen to this nation. I can see where it has a place. Just for understanding, And it's about biblical wisdom, and we've talked about the biblical wisdom of give honor to honor, and unto whom honor is due, and so on and so forth. But there's also a thing to be known about what actually happened to what we call the United States of America. You also add that to the mix of all this knowledge, and like I say here. Anyhow, this guy, there's one person writes here, the right of the people to self-governance. Okay, there's a lot to be said there, but this person writes, the right to self-governance is secretly illegal under commercialized common law. Okay, he's talking about the system that has occupied our seats of government. That's true. They have occupied our government. What was once the United States of America government. What we the people hold to is something different than what you can say the secret societies and what they're holding to and what their system that they're a part of, whether that officer knows it or not, but who he's obeying and his boss's boss's boss. There, yeah, it's a completely different system, and we'll go to that. They switched the roles on us after the Civil War. Sure, there's a lot to that. They created a war against we the people to force us to obey them. Yeah, and they're actually not our government. We'll get to that. When they detain, but they're in the positions of our government. I went over that before, so there is an honor there. Like I gave the old analogy, you had like a teacher, and let's use a different analogy. You have a coach. You're on the basketball team or something, and you have a coach, and you honor the coach, and you try to do what he says you want to, and he's really legitimately, he was hired as the coach by the people that hired in that school and so forth, and he's on the payroll of the school and so on and so forth. He's legitimately your coach. But somebody came by and they sneakily came by and they ended up stealing, killing, destroying, and they to put it in very simple terms, they killed him and replaced him. Somebody that has no business being a basketball coach and everything. Long story short, you find it's now they took over. They took over the school system. They took over the principal of the school. They lied, steal, killed, cheated, and destroyed very sneakily. And it was gradual over, a long time. But now they totally have it. They're running the school. And they sent somebody to be your basketball coach. So they're in that position of your basketball coach. Now, and they changed the rules. It's like, no, yeah, I know you were taught that the school goes by these rules, but no, we're telling you this now, And they're really sneaky about it. It would be a whole lot easier to understand if they wasn't so darn sneaky about it. And they're trying to act like, oh, we're still, like your school was called, I was watching Beavis and Butthead, the Highland Eagles or something. Oh, yeah, this is the Highland Eagles, They're lying to you there. Well, meanwhile, in their back rooms, in their secret offices, they say, yeah, we're not the Highland Eagles, we're something else. But we're continuing to tell them that we're the Highland Eagles, and, yeah, you're their principal, and I'm their basketball coach and stuff, All that subterfuge and infiltration, all that stuff. But you're sitting there, playing basketball, and you got this new coach. He's terrible. He's going against the original laws of the school, the policies, everything. He's going against everything. He's not even teaching you basketball right. He said, "Oh yeah, you got to carry the ball when and you have to play other schools too. Meanwhile, and you got you're trying to learn basketball too. You're trying to play the game." And you like basketball, right? So no, you got to travel the ball. You do all this. They're teaching you everything wrong. They're doing it wrong. They're not even there, right? So on and so forth. When they detain or arrest us, we become prisoners of war. That's actually true. That's true. When they detain or arrest us, we do become prisoners of war. Believe it or not. Now, that sounds rebellious or something like that, but that is true. That's actually the amazing thing about that is I didn't like all this. Some people used to call it sovereign citizen stuff and all that stuff. I was like, man, come on, man, stop with that. But the amazing thing is that is actually true. And that's not being rebellious. I'm not being, I'm not dishonoring those who are to receive honor and so on and so forth. No, when they detain or arrest us, that is true. We have become prisoners of war, But, okay, so we might get to so what is the biblical significance of all this, though? Let's quickly put that this way. Okay, whether you use the Old Testament or the New Testament, what happened when they become prisoners of Egypt or Rome? It's the same type of thing. So we're talking about this in order to just raise awareness. It kind of doesn't change anything biblically. Our duties as Christians kind of doesn't change. To know all these things, for the most part, it doesn't actually even change. But the awareness that what is actually in the seats of what we call our USA government, it's good to know that they're not actually what they're portraying to be. Because a lot of us still think that that's so. And you think, well, this country's not so bad. I've been abroad and everywhere, and it's the greatest country in the world. And you go like, hey, you could have great points with that. That's probably debatable. I don't know. I haven't been all around the world, but hey, you could make a case for that for sure. I'm sure. Greatest country in the world is pretty daggone good here. You could in comparison to other nations. Yeah, sure, but once you realize, one of the things that realizing this does is you realize the fact of why. It's not because you can't look to what's called our government now and say, well, they're pretty daggone good. No, number one, it's because the restrainer hasn't been removed. That gets deep. You could write a book. Number two, you could write a book about. I mean, I don't know how to simplify it very quickly here. For right now, let's just give an extremely simplified version of you're under an illusion if you think that what's now called the USA government is what you've been taught in school is the USA government. By the people, for the people, and all those founding principles and slogans and documents and stuff that we were taught. That's not what they are going by. But they haven't been given the authority to, they would want to totally, and this gets into the Antichrist actually too. They're just able to infiltrate and be as tyrannous as they're allowed to be right now, which has its limits. Now they wish it didn't. The higher you go in their command structure, they wish it didn't have such limits. They kind of hate the United States of America. They adore China a whole lot more, even though they have the same thing. Every nation in this age still has there's limits on the tyranny, even in China. You can see, and mostly that's you can kind of see a more direct, clear case in China. A lot of the liberties and the goodness that you still see in the land of China, which there is a lot too with them, isn't because of the government. It's because of God, and it's because of the many Christians there. Have you heard about the exploding church in China that's been growing greatly? That salt and light in the land, that's what's keeping back it from being worse. It's different. That's the preserving factor of that it doesn't just look like hell over there, or the Great Tribulation, or the Daniel 70th week. Why doesn't it look like that? Those Luciferian governments want it to look like that right now. They have a limited scope, and well, you can say over the past 200 years, what the governments have been trying to do is increase and expand their limited scope. They're trying to sneakily bring in. One of the first tactics they like to do is lawlessness. They like, if they could bring in lawlessness, and through lawlessness create laws that are against God, then after lawlessness they create laws that are against God, against the nation's constitution, the original nation's constitution. In other words, they try to increase evil. But they find bounds in doing that still in this age, and that's mostly not because of we hold to the Star Spangled Banner and all this stuff. No, it's because the children of God are still here, and it depends on the different nation. Like the founding of this nation, for instance, was mixed, but had a very Christian. It also had a lot of Christian sacrifice and starting to it, foundations. It had, in some of its foundation, it had some Christian things, and that's how Babylon works. It's mixed. The way the spirit of Babylon works is they're not just going to come to you and say, and also Luciferianism in its way too, but Babylon in particular, they're not just going to come to you and say, okay, we're just devil worshiping, blood drinking, we just want to serve Lucifer and go against God. We're all, they don't come to you like that. They come to you like, yeah, all are welcome. Yeah, every religion, every nation. Oh yeah, we got Christianity too. Yeah, here in Babylon we have Christianity too. In fact, we even have our own branch of Christianity. And you can see this very clearly when Freemasonry was taken over. It was completely taken over by the Luciferians, Luciferianism. Around the 1770s it started. Freemasonry was taken over by Luciferianism. You could see it even in their own, specifically in their teachings and their beliefs. They even have a Christian Bible. They even write their own Christian Bibles, with their own code languages and things like that. So they'll use that. They'll use even their enemies and act like they're a part of it. And everything's a part of us. Everything is in Babylon, in other words. Everything is in Babylon. And no, America's not Babylon. That's Babylon. Let's put it this way. The spirit of Babylon's bigger than any one nation. It rules over all the nations. Let's just put it that way. And it infiltrated this. When America was beginning, it looked like many well-meaning people and a lot of Christians thought like, well, we're going to have a nation to where we're not ruled by tyrants and kings that are going against their own laws and kings that are saying that they're the head of the church. It's okay to have kings. But what happened in England, for instance, he said that he was not just the head of the state, he said he was the head of the church. So he became his own state pope, one way to put it, which was, of course, anti-biblical, and he required the people to do things that are against the Bible, so the people had no duty to obey that, because you obey the highest authority first. You see the picture there. And this could get broke down simply if we go back to what's the biblical duty for a Christian? This there's a lot of complexities to this stuff, but again, at the end here, we'll probably break it down simply as kind of our duty is kind of the same as it ever would have been. Just know that you don't have a godly government. is one thing to know. It's their foreign occupancy, according to the founding principles of the United States of America. This would be called a foreign occupancy, is what's been going on. This thing that this person says, I'm not sure of this. There's some parts of this that I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about here. But just for interest here, I'm going to quote it. He says, one more thing. He says, quote, I am a prisoner of war against my rights, and I demand to be sent back to my country. Yeah, you might demand, but on what grounds will they give you that demand? You might demand that, but on what grounds will they give you that demand? That they're moral, law-abiding people, that it's some kind of law you hearken back to, and that they have the integrity that they'll be able to do it. So what this all comes down to, you better have a personal relationship with God, you know. Really what it comes down to is you need a relationship with the highest authority. Because if you expect them to do the right thing, the legal thing, it doesn't matter what you bring up. If they could get away with not doing it, with being evil and unlawful, immoral, unbiblical, if they could get away with it, you know, they will. They'll do it. You got to realize, like Luciferians, they have no bottom. So, you know, don't rely upon their goodness or integrity for them to do what they're supposed to do. I mean, you can play that game. You can go that route. You can go in their courts, and you can try to sue them, and you might win in court and stuff like that. Even their own court documents say that they're there to give an appearance of justice. What they're doing there is they're keeping you believing in their system. They're trying to remain relevant. They have a bounds to where they could go, but also they're trying to remain relevant. It's like, okay, we'll give you this one. But if you push them far enough, let's put it that way. If you get into their nest, and if you push into their nest, like most of these people, they're at the lowest levels here. He's talking to officers and things like that. It's like, yeah, sure, they'll play with you. They'll play your game at that level, and you'll win some court battles, you know, seemingly. Even though it'll probably take you a lot of money and time and harassment, but you could win a court battle. But that's just giving an appearance of justice. For instance, if you push into their nest too much, you'll be faced with where the war really is, and it's also where we've gotten in time in a way as well. At this end of the age, you'll stir the nest of the Luciferians directly, you know, and then you'll have a spiritual warfare fight on your hand. And you can put it this way: many people that, especially those that didn't have a relationship with God, they go missing. I'm just letting you know. You know, they got many different ways to murder you and stuff if you get into that nest. That's not for fear. That's just letting you know what you're dealing with there. So I wouldn't go that deep without a relationship with God. I mean, there's many instances you'll see that they're bound. So you take Arthur Pulaski, for instance. You know, they told him don't congregate, don't sing songs. You know, so he sang twice as much songs, and he'd congregate more times per week than ever. And you know, he did the opposite of what they said. And sure, yeah, they imprisoned him, they tortured him, they had him in metal cages, and so on and so forth. But now he's out free. You know. They wanted to murder him many times. They gave incentives to the guards. To the guards gave incentives and they didn't come up with it out of their own head. They got orders, the guards, to give incentives to the inmates to kill him. They try to kill him in many ways, but God is the point here. So if you don't have that, when you start stirring the Luciferian nest there, well, I'll just tell you, you better have a relationship with God. That's what it comes down to. And then that's where you go. God's sovereign will, and that with His people in the spiritual warfare. That's when you get into that. And if God tells you to do something, do it. It doesn't matter if the entire world says contrary. Of course. Okay, like for instance, I remember on one of his recent live streams, Sean Paul Reyes here, Long Island Audits. He had a live stream recently, and I was trying to tell him on there. There was a lot of people on there, of course, but I was trying to give him a message so that pretty much your next battle is like, I would pray to God. I'd pray to God in Lord Jesus and trying to give him the gospel and things like that, because he's starting to, when he's starting to deal with that Fahey, that was a the region of the state's prosecutor. He was that entire district's state prosecutor. If I get that right. So he was, pretty high up in their system, and so if he's going to go much beyond that, he's going to be a kick in the nest of the vipers there, and if you get into that further than he's gotten into so far, yeah, like I said before, you'd be stirring up that nest, and you find out just how Luciferian they are, and so it's just. So I think I've made that clear, Right? Correct me if I'm wrong, or any questions or comments you have concerning that, if I didn't make anything clear. Okay. So one is also reminded of this, both in the Old and New Testament. But let's take the story of Daniel, for instance. This is something to be said, too. It's very interesting. Before we end out this man's comment. Now, you remember when Daniel was in Babylon, okay, he interpreted a king's dream. What do they do with him? This is just a side point of interest here, something to consider. And how the Most High even works through anything. He could work for his people through anything, even Babylon. When Daniel was in Babylon, he got favor. And he was even given a title. What was he, second or third over the land or whatever? He got a pretty big title. When Joseph was in Egypt, what did he? He was second to Pharaoh. So these are God's people of that time, and they were in a godless, pagan, evil kingdom. So think about that too. Not that it's the exact same today, but there's some things to be said about that. So no matter, it's kind of like when some of these people play their game of going through the courts, they might want God to not be in any part of it, but God still rules over all, At the same time, I wouldn't expect, I wouldn't go to court with anyone, And it does testify to them. If you're standing up for the right thing, the lawful thing in the land, and the godly thing, I think God, one of the reasons why God allows that is it also testifies to those in that land, in that that secret society land there, their little secret world. So, as always with that is, I would just say, go with what God would have you to do in that. Don't expect to be given any political positions. I think it's different than Egypt and ancient Egypt and Babylon now. You're not going to be a governor of a state. Let's put it that way. I mean, in the system now, this end time New World Order system, it's just not going to be. You're not going to have that. But could God give you favor in accordance to what He would have you to do? Yes, God could give you favor. Even when you realize this United States of America that we're in here, we're really ruled by God first and foremost. I'll just leave it at that. And let's finish this comment out. It's very interesting that he says this here. I think I might look into this more, just for interest, because it's interesting. He says, do not use what is under common law practice to gain freedom. That puts you under them. Okay. I probably understand what he's saying there. There might be some parts that I don't thoroughly know, but this ending sentence, Federalist Papers and the Bible is what is to be used. Okay. It's interesting. I get the Bible. I get that because you're, you could say appealing to, or you going by, or you're operating under the highest authority, God, and do whatever He has you to do. If He has you to not, pray to God about it. Like say, a relationship with God. If He has you to go to courts, for instance, with somebody, do it. If He has you to not to, do that. So that's the most foolproof, safe-proof way of doing these things. Like Joseph didn't go to Egypt himself. He was sold to Egypt apart from his will. Even his own brethren meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Daniel didn't willingly go to Babylon himself. But he was found in Babylon, a lot like us today. Found in these governments that are Babylon. And yet he kept doing what was right. Got rescued out of the lion's den. It's kind of like Arthur Pulaski's story and many of the stories, Because God is sovereign over His people. He looks over His people. And what God's designed will for him while he was yet in Babylon. Because he remained faithful to God, he's seen that come to pass, So it doesn't matter if they're, so in a way you can see a summary here, it doesn't matter if they're, let's say United States government is what we were taught in school, and what they still portray themselves to be, what they're showing an outside lying, they're putting up a front. It's not what they themselves consider themselves to be. They've, like I say, even admitted in their own papers that they're no longer a government. Oh, that doesn't really matter. Just be faithful to God. That's the part that matters. Then it shall go well with you, regardless of what they're doing, the Luciferians and what they're doing. Okay. So I think there were two main points to this message here. One is, if you're going to stand up for the right thing, because of what I brought forth here, it would be most wise for you to have a relationship with God, and that's in Lord Jesus Christ. Whosoever believes that Lord Jesus is the Christ is born of God. It's a free gift. Whosoever believes, believe in your heart, confess with your mouth, and that is the spiritual mouth. That Jesus is the Christ and he was raised from the dead, what he did on the cross for us. You know, if you believe that, you are his people, and so call upon him. So that's number one. Number two is just the for awareness and clarity. You know, some people scoff, a lot of people scoff at the ideas like, oh, yeah, ha ha, yeah, the Freemasons, the conspiracy theorists say that there's some kind of organization that's trying to overrun the world, and, you know, you see it on Wikipedia and all that stuff. Oh, that's a conspiracy theorists are saying, but no, that there's no proof of that and everything. Well, Freemasonry is just a branch of it. It's a branch that the Luciferians are using. But at its more of its root, that's just one of their branches that they use. But yes, the Luciferians have pretty much taken over all the world. The same tree, the same branch of Luciferianism. They're, they have taken over the world. Not only with the spirit of Babylon, but also the spirit of the beast is now rising. You know, that's the same. Luciferian, yeah, they're literally devil worshiping, blood drinking. The higher you go in that order of the world governments, yeah, they're drinking blood, sacrificing children. They're the worst of the worst people on the earth. The higher you get in the government, the more you find that. I mean, that's literal truth. I mean, that's just what's going on in the world. So, you know, understand that truth. And your American system is hooked right up in that. The people that have the seats of government now, they're in that system. So for that point, and an additional word on that point number two, it's okay if you want to be patriotic. You know, there's some good brothers and sisters and such that think it's cool to be patriotic and things like that, and I get it, you know, how that makes sense to you, such as that. But just also understand these things and what the government is actually involved in. And it's not, you know, what you've been told. If you want to be patriotic with wisdom when it comes to the United States of America, mostly, more particularly, I've talked about here. It's okay to end this out and put it in very practical terms here. Me and Sister Vicky Gage was chatting on her channel about this. She had a recent post, I think it was. Vicky Gage, Gage. She was saying something about the military, and I was commenting to her about, yeah, it would not be wise at all, especially in the last 60 or 70 years, do not join the U.S. military. You know, you could have I've talked about the American Revolution instance 250 years ago. You could have an argument for a Christian fighting to defend their land and their families when that happened. But in the last 70 years, and I call, like World War II, this is very interesting. Maybe we'll get into this. World War II, I see it as the gray area time. We might have to do another video on this. It's very interesting. Gray area, you either could or couldn't. You know, you make an argument for, well, if you don't, look what you're fighting against. Look what we're fighting against, though. We're fighting against this evil. You know, don't you want to do that? Oh, you know, do the right thing and enjoy it, even though they had a draft back then. But ever since, from Vietnam onward, if you understand these things and you understand the wars that they've been fighting, easily from Vietnam onward, every single one from then. If you was to really understand these things here, you would be wise enough to not join the military. 100%. Well, and I understand there's a lot of brothers and sisters that did, and with good intentions. And of course, I'm not mad at them or anything, but you did so ignorantly, you know. So that's what this number 2 point with all this was about: is don't be ignorant. You know, it's best to not be ignorant, and don't play into their system. Our votes are not counting, especially on the federal level. They have that in full control. They might have some local things that voting still counts, but on the federal government level, your voting is nothing. It's don't participate in that, and for goodness sake, do not join their militaries at all. Once you understand and you see in the wars that you have you fighting and why, oh man, we could go on and on about that. If you see a clear picture of that, you would not join their militaries. Probably all around the world, but I could say, yeah, all around the world now. Definitely not the USA military. Do not join it at all. Do not fight for them, not fight for their wars. Don't even, some people say, well, I'm Christian, but I want to join the military. But I pray to God it's like that I won't have to kill anybody in one of their wars. Yeah, but you're supporting those, if you're in that military with them, you're supporting those that are. And once you find out what they're killing for, if you actually find out what the wars were for, yeah, you as a Christian would not do it. And an ending word on that, much more so, to the utmost 100% extreme. Do not join the United States of America military in 2026. It's just a death wish. You're like, okay, I'm just going to run out in front of this truck going down the street. I think it's the right thing to do. That's just dumb personified. No, they've already sold out the United States of America to the New World Order ideas. No, they've already like some people have had prophetic dreams and visions about, and when they've, I think Sister Brittany, several people have gotten dreams and visions about it. They seen our fighter jets, and they were just being decimated, and I think on one account, our own government was looking on, and they wasn't doing anything about it. Yeah, they've already sacrificed you, and they're going to sacrifice the United States of America's military on purpose. The people that are in the government seats of what we call United States of America, they've already chosen. They're sacrificing this land and this nation to the New World Order, and they're getting rid of the military. They're going to send them to their own destruction. So if you want to be sent to your own destruction for a goose chase by your own commanders and chiefs and generals, well, that's your call. But that's just dumb. I'm sorry. I mean, of course that's foolish. We'd all agree with that. There's no way, no how. You know, it's gone. It's gone. You're not fighting for anything. They've already chose to sacrifice the United States and its military. So don't fight for them, please. Well, I think that sums it up, don't it? And we're at the end of the age. You know, if you've studied that and you've really watched for that, you know, being in the Lord Jesus Christ and having His Holy Spirit and studying the Bible, you understand we're at the end of this age. And so the Spirit and the bride say, "Come." Let him who hears say, "Come." That whoever would, let him come and take of the waters of life freely. Even so, come Lord Jesus. Any day now, and that happens in the rapture first, because he takes his church away before the day of the Lord. Happens on the earth, and that begins any day now. Is what I have to say about it. So, come Lord Jesus.